Welcome back, everybody. It's a new day, new setup behind me, and guess what? It's a new patch. I know what a lot of you may have been hoping for, the big 7.40 epic patch with Bard Frog. But what we got ourselves is a 7.39E. And we can almost certainly expect the big patch to be coming out in December, because this is pretty traditional post-TI fashion for Valve the last few years. But what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be reviewing the changes that happened in 7.39E, as I do believe they have a significant impact on the meta. And we've got a little bonus tidbit at the end of the video on top of our standard meta update, so stick around to see what's going on back there. Okay, let's get right into the patch notes. So first and foremost, I didn't even know that creep heroes triggered scan. So that made Helm Dom even better than it was before, because it would trick you into thinking there's a hero there. And then they slightly nerfed stacking, effectively by like 7%, because you're going from 85 to 80. So stacking is a little bit worse, and that means that heroes like Sven, like Medusa, like Sand King, especially in the off lane, the Beastmasters, the Earthshakers, these heroes are going to be impacted by this. Is it groundbreaking? No. But it definitely is worth considering that those heroes will drop down a little bit. Okay, going into item changes, we've actually got some pretty crazy quality of life, I'd say, buffs for everyone involved, because I think these items were OP in their own reasons, and they weren't good reasons. So the first thing they did for Eon Disc was, what people would do is that they would keep the Eon Disc disassembled so that there was no way to actually proc it until you hard committed onto the opponent. And then when they dropped to like 30%, 20% HP, they would assemble it, and that would be their use of Eon Disc. But now what happens here is that it goes on cooldown if you were to do that. So you have to go in with your Eon Disc ready to be procced, and people can poke it down, because I believe the threshold is what, 70% HP? So Eon Disc, pretty significant quality of life nerf to the item, but it's much better to play against for everyone. The next one is a nerf that it's been long overdue, guys, and that is that Ghost Form from ETH Blade, as well as Ghost Scepter, as well as all abilities, Necrophos, Pugna, no longer works when the wearer is BKB'd or debuff immune in some way. So previously what happened was, if I pressed BKB and Ghost Scepter at the same time, you couldn't attack me, and most spells didn't really do any damage to me, because I had 60% magic resistance from BKB. So there were very few things in the game that actually did damage to you. You were virtually unkillable. An item like Nullifier just doesn't work anymore, right? I have no way to reliably click you, because I can't dispel you, because Nullifier doesn't work through BKB, and then I would have BKB plus Ghost Scepter on. So now there's no like magic formula for being freaking invulnerable for 4 seconds, which was bullshit. So great to see that gone. Helm of the Dominator. They actually, I'd love to know they were watching my stream or not, but maybe great minds think alike here. But my proposed nerf to Helm of the Dominator was a low mana cost. I was thinking 25 to 50. I thought they would also increase the cooldown because the item's effectively being used like a Midas. But the other change that I proposed that I think is really awesome that they did is that Dominator can no longer be used if the current Dominated creep took damage from hero-based sources in the last 3 seconds. Most annoying thing, in my opinion, about Helm of the Dominator is that you could like cut creep waves with the creep, and somebody on the other team would go try to kill it, and you would just be waiting in the midst to dominate a new creep and deny them that bounty. So it was something that you had to deal with, and you wouldn't even get rewarded for it in any way. So I think that's the most important, impactful change about it. But the 50 mana cost definitely matters in the early game for heroes like Marcy, Faceless Void, Anti-Mage, that were going this item and didn't really need mana regen, but they will effectively need mana regen in order to sustain using it off cooldown, for sure, because it's effectively costing you 1 mana per second if you're using it like a Midas. And those heroes, while they don't require a ton of mana to function, they definitely need it on Anti-Mage to blink, for Marcy to W, as well as for Faceless Void to time walk and actually have Chronosphere in fight. So maybe they'd even have to like take the neutral item that gives 0.8 mana regen as a way to supplement that. But either way, the point is that these heroes can't just kind of face roll, buy some HP regen with the Helm of the Dominator, and then need nothing else. They need something to supplement this item, which significantly nerfs like the early game impact of it, or like the quality of life of it. I think the heroes that bought it will still buy it, but we're going to see it a lot more situationally from hero to hero, because this 50 mana cost, especially like agility heroes or like supports like Monkey King that we were seeing, that's going to hurt a lot. It doesn't really matter for Helm of the Overlord. By that stage, you have like the 25 all stats, 21 all stats from the item. I don't think you're going to be lacking mana at that point. And the next cool thing is that Refresh Orb that's previously been a 3-minute cooldown now goes up by 10 seconds every time you use it, up to 210. So going for like the refresher BKB build, it felt like all the best late game heroes would go BKB refresher. It's just been nerfed. Item's still good, costs a little bit more mana, but at the end of the day, I think refresher's still going to be a crucial item in the mid to late game. Kind of the same idea as the neutral creep thing, where it's like the heroes that utilize this will be slightly worse, but I think it's still a good strategy, right? You still want to play heroes that stack ancients, and you still want to play heroes that buy refresher, but perhaps other heroes will be more viable in the mid to late game because of it. Next up, I think the main takeaway from neutral item changes is that the Outward Staff now makes you invulnerable rather than hidden. So it doesn't cancel abilities like Omni Slash. It just makes it so you don't take any damage, which is a big difference between effectively phase shifting Omni Slash. Rip Ame, by the way. You know, Too Little Too Late. I believe the song by JoJo is what Ame is going to be singing when he reads this patch. Neutral creep changes. I'd say the biggest thing about this is it nerfs Helm of the Dominator, and it also nerfs summons heroes like Chen. It nerfs Doom even further because he is a hero that traditionally would have that pack leader's aura for the mid to late game. So I'd say Doom carry was already dead, but now it's like officially dead, and Doom offlane will probably no longer ever want the Alpha Wolf as like the premier creep to have. It's still good, but it's significantly weaker. That's 50% weaker. Also, the Skeleton Warriors, the Troll Summoner creep was kind of bullshit. I think it's honestly still going to be kind of bullshit, but at least everything hits for 3 less damage, 6 less damage if you have 2 sets of Skellies. I think you can still cut full creep waves with this, though, which is part of what made Helm of the Dominator so strong. Moving into hero changes. We have Abaddon with a slight nerf to his ulti cooldown. We have Bane with a slight nerf to his cast range on Enfeeble. Beastmaster was a hero that I was eagerly awaiting to get nerfed. I feel like the fact that he buys Helm of the Dominator pretty much every game, plus another base damage nerf. Like, if we look at this hero's changes, it's like base damage, base damage, base damage. So, like, 3 patches in the last, like, 5, he's gotten his base damage nerfed. That's pretty based, if you ask me. I think the hero will still be good in my games. You know, I don't know how often you guys see Beastmaster in the lower MMRs. The lower you go, I guess. I think the hero's still going to be good because the hero's like been meta for like 4 years straight. Brewmaster, as well as Treant, spoiler alerts, absolutely unkillable. They both got their base armor increased by 1. Dawnbreaker with the Ags, I'd say is a pretty significant nerf. The linger duration, you're no longer getting that extra heal pulse as well as the damage pulse. So overall, I would just say that the Ags is significantly nerfed and the hero will probably still see play with probably the same build. But I think she's approaching territory of no longer being a premier hero in the game. But for now, I think she'll still see play. Disruptor got slightly nerfed in the early game, but still going to be a good support if the meta remains the same, which means the pace of the game slows down in the mid game. I think that's why Disruptor's been, stocks have been rising as support. With the farming nature of the game slowing down, oftentimes people aren't team fighting until like 20, 25 minutes plus. Having a support in the early mid game that offers a lot of catch fits the bill right now. Little buff for Earth Spirit. Nerfs for Earthshaker. Let's actually test this. Will this hero still one-shot creep waves after the Aftershock nerf and the fissure damage nerf? Let's find out. Okay. So the nerfs are there, like they matter, but what made this hero broken in regards to farming is still the exact same. Hoodwink with the slight nerf, Chikiro with the slight buff. Hype, we got Kez in Captain's Mode. He did get nerfed pretty sizably. Like, I'll let you read these things yourself. I personally think Kez is one of the most bullshit heroes in all of Dota, so I'm glad they're nerfing him. I don't think his win rate is that great, but if there's a decent amount of like Grandmaster tier Kez players in my bracket, like this hero is honestly like the right-click invoker. It has a lot of spells to be casted. It is a specialty hero that requires you to spam and really understand him. But in the right hands, this hero is absolutely nutty, so I'm glad that they're nerfing him, and I'm also excited to see if any hero specialists make it into the competitive scene, or some of the top-tier pro players decide to whip him out. But I am definitely glad they gave him nerfs, because if you haven't experienced the Wrath of Kez, then, you know, I'm happy for you at this point. Lustrak, another hero that ethereal form got nerfed on his Ags in regards to being debuff immune. My boy Lich, a little bit of love. Lifestealer, there was a gimmick where you could deny your own Helm of the Dominator creep and get the hero kill count once you had Ags. So you go like Helm Dom and then like an Ags. One of your teammates has Helm Dom, you go Ags, and you just give yourself permanent health, and now that's no longer the case. Honestly, I think Lina support might be pretty good right now with the 0.2 second buff. on her stun. I already lane against Lena support like twice, and it was really annoying, and she fits the bill of like these ranged damage dealing 4s. She's not as hard to kill as something like Hoodwink, but I think she might be good in pubs, to be honest. Movement is now canceled if Magnus is interrupted. What does that mean? Stunned, hexed, or out of the world? I would assume that also means dead. Is that what he means by out of the world? I assume death would also count, but okay. So I think in the past you would still just finish the skewer, but now it actually interrupts it, which is nice. It's easier to play against Mag. And it's easier to stop that skewer back in the mid to late game. It's pretty broken actually, so this is a pretty huge nerf. Marcy with a slight nerf to her later stages of her ulti, but you're still attacking like super fast. Mars, a hero that I didn't think was going to be that great going into TI, it just feels like you don't want to have to buy early to mid game BKBs, and then Arena just forces you to buy a BKB, especially with the Bloodsport facet where you can't see anything. So nerfing the late game aspect of this arena, I like it a lot, but Mars definitely not a hero that's been receiving love in the patch notes the last however long. I feel like almost all of them are Mars nerfs. So Medusa actually lost a bit of effective HP here. You know, it seems like 10%, but that's just the base, and you get 0.1 every time you level up. So it's like at level 20, it's going to be 4 instead of 4.2, which it's relevant, but I would say the hero's still solid. By every stretch of the imagination, you just have effectively like 5% less HP. Now you're kind of unkillable rather than unkillable. I think the biggest part about Monkey King here is that the tree dance in the air, it's like not unheard of to like stun him, but if he was jumping from tree to tree, it didn't matter. Like even if I hex you with Lion or something, you would just finish the tree dance. I think this is a pretty big nerf to Monkey King. So I'm imagining that there's going to be heroes like Lion, like Shadow Shaman, or just mid to late game hexes that are way better against Monkey King now. You have to be like way more careful ever jumping from tree to tree. Support Naga getting nerfed. Probably still broken. Dude, honestly, I didn't even realize it until I've played against it a few times in pubs recently. I played against No Tail playing Naga and on support, and that shit was like unplayable to play against. You have constant vision on the map, always has the team fight advantage. Like maybe Deluge nerf is enough, but you guys don't have to play against this because people are too lazy to micro, then once again, I'm happy for you. Necro with the nerf. Cast range on Omni a little bit. Does this really matter that much? Maybe the OD one matters because you did leave Orb at level 1 until like level 7. So maybe maybe ODs matters. I feel like for PA, the biggest issue is that you have to level this ability in general. In the past, like what made PA's laning stage was that your innate was the evasion, so you never even had to spend a skill point. But now, like, you're no longer getting the stats in the early to mid game, and in laning phase, you actually have to invest a point in it if you want to have the 25% evasion, which is a lot though. I think she's still going to be weak though. Pucks, Facet a little nerfed. Queen of Pain damage a little bit. Static Link cooldown a little bit. Kind of nice level 1, to be honest. I actually might try out some Razor. That is like having only a 6-second downtime, or 6-second less of downtime. The link duration's 10 and the buff duration is 12. So if you get the full link, it would be 22 seconds. Is that great? Not necessarily, but it means that you're more likely to be able to do it at the beginning of one creep wave and at the end of the next, is what I would say that the big difference between 50 to 44 is. And I do believe Razor will have a place if we keep seeing these like melee carries like Troll and Lifestealer and stuff. I think Ricky's still pretty bad. Negligible. Nice. I don't know how many people are actually abusing that. It might actually have been abused a lot, but I didn't really see it. It would be nice during Glyph, especially, because you could just prevent the tower from actually killing your own creeps. That's actually a pretty big nerf to Silencer, because he's a position-based hero in laning stage throughout the entire rest of the game, so this is pretty big. Snapfire definitely needed a nerf. I'm surprised they didn't target her Little Shredder. If you guys haven't played against Snapfire in lane with Little Shredder level 1, that shit does an absurd amount of damage. I'm surprised they didn't do anything about that. Sven is actually a pretty big nerf. This means that he loses effectively 1 damage per 10 strength starting at level 6. So I wanted to, when I saw this change, I actually wanted to go in and check like approximately how much strength is this hero going to have at given stages of the game. So let's go check that out real quick. Okay, so I think the most we're having at level 6 is like a wand and maybe a bracer. So this is 6 damage that you're losing. So let's level that up. That's like a reasonable amount to have. And at this stage, we have 100 strength. So now we're losing 10 damage at that stage of the game. What about like hyper late game? We're like, we'll just say level 30 for the sake of it. We've got a Satanic, Swift Blink. That's probably about the most strength we're going to have. So we lost 20 damage in the mid to late game. So it looks like we lost about 6 level 1, 10 level 12, and like 15 to 20 past level 18 on Sven. That's a relevant amount of damage on a hero that's purely right-click based. So I'd say that the hero stock went down a little bit, but effectively he's still the same hero. The next big nerf that I want to point out is Ursa. I know it doesn't seem like much. You're going to see later that I believe Ursa was a very good hero prior to this patch. So I feel like, even though this doesn't seem like much, that this Aghanim Shard and Rage keeps getting nerfed. We see 1.3 to 1.2, 1.4 to 1.3, 1.5 to 1.4. So in the last year, it's actually gone from 1.5 to 1.2 second duration of Enrage, which just, it's effectively 20% less than it used to be. And if we look at this Fury Swipes talent, it went from 12 to 9. Doesn't seem all that bad, right? Went from 15 to 12. Went from 20 to 15. So a year ago, this talent was 20 seconds, and now it's 9. And this is the talent that you always took, and Ursa purely plays around Fury Swipes. So his mid to late game definitely got nerfed significantly with this Fury Swipes reset. And then if you look at 7.39D, they also lowered his innate as the game goes on. I believe Ursa's feeling it in terms of the nerfs hitting him over time, but he was a premier hero in 7.39D, especially in pubs. I feel like I saw him all the time. So maybe it's good riddance, but I do love my boy Ursa. Venomancer with a small buff. I did see some people in the Reddit comments talking about, like, why is this hero getting buffed? Well, he didn't get picked a single time at TI. I would imagine that's why. That rhymed. I didn't mean to. It's time to rhyme on a dime. But yeah, little buff to Venomancer and his wards. Negligible for Viper, and honestly a decent buff for Visage. Maybe we'll see him a bit in the offlane or mid, because Grave Chill is the main spell that he uses in mid, especially level 1. Being able to spam it with a little bit less mana problems. But overall, I feel like this patch, the biggest changes were what we talked about at the top, which was the item changes and how they interact with heroes. Now you can have reliable right-clicking on carries, which makes ease of execution a little bit better, and also they just scale better into the late game. And then we're going to see a lot less, I think, of the Helm of the Dominator, but the heroes that were still buying it are still going to buy it. So, without further ado, at the beginning of the video, I promised you guys a little bonus, and now I'm going to give it to you. So, guys, the memes are true. BSJ decides to make a tier list, and they release a patch a day later. We hadn't even released the video for this yet, as what I've got for you is a carry hero tier list from 7.39D, but we're going to have to move it around just a little bit. So based on the changes that we saw, you know, give you guys a second to kind of absorb the carries that we put on here. We actually added a Helm of the Dominator creep tier because these heroes, in my opinion, are only really viable because of Helm of the Dominator. It allows them to get out of the early game. So without going into hyper detail about every hero that we have on this list, let's just think about the changes that we saw. So I'm going to actually bump Razor up to C tier because of that static link change. I'm going to move PA from the absolute worst carry in the game to like the top of F tier because of the fact that she got that 5% evasion. I'm going to move Slark up because Ursa and Monkey King are the other passive-based carries, the ones that dominate lane against melee heroes, and they both got nerfed. So I'm going to bump Monkey King down to like a little bit above Slark, but I think Slark's priority went up a bit. I am going to bump Nature's Prophet back up to S because he didn't get nerfed at all for some reason. I'm going to move Ursa to be the second best hero in the whole patch. I'm still going to leave all three of these heroes in Helmdom tier because I think they're still going to be strong, and I'm still going to leave Helmdom tier up here because, like I said, I still believe they're strong, but it is important to note that they are going to be a bit weaker in the early game. Notice that I did have Sven and Medusa as my A tier heroes, and they both, Sven received damage nerfs and Medusa received health nerfs. Jug, on the other hand, Outworld Staff, his worst counter in the game. I think Jug is going to see a lot of play, people. I think we've got Jug up there. And then I think PL is going to go up to like higher B tier. I believe we're going to actually move some of the stable carries up. So like I'm going to give like a Baden and Dragon Knight up to the B tier, because I think that these heroes are just going to go down in favor. So we want some stable carries that didn't necessarily rely on stacks. That was like a big portion of these heroes as well. So I'm actually predicting the uprise of Jug. Ame foreshadowed this. He was the oracle that we needed and made the sacrifice, became the hero that the community needed, even though we didn't know we needed it. And when I'm looking at the rest of the heroes, I'd say not much else changed. I'd say maybe heroes like TB that operated without stacks maybe went up a bit in value as like hard farmers that don't stack. Same with perhaps Wraith King will bump them up a little bit. But aside from that, I feel like the patch didn't significantly change anything. The only thing to keep in mind is that the heroes that built Helm of the Dominator, we're going to have to see how it plays out because of the fact that they have that 50 mana to be worth considering. But this is my little surprise, you know, unreleased, never going to be released video of a carry hero tier list. And I think this is going to be a nice gauge for 7.39E. And I'll almost certainly update you guys in the future meta updates if somebody comes into the meta. I'm going to like bump them up or, you know, showcase them in my tier list. But my prediction is that Jug is going to be rising in stonks because he is already super popular in the lower MMRs. And I believe with the items like Ghost Scepter plus BKB interaction getting nerfed, Jug can actually buy a nullifier and reliably kill you. The only exception is like BKB plus Yules, but that feels like really bad to buy on a lot of heroes in the game. So yeah, big buffs to Jug. He's my boy. I'm actually going to start playing him myself. So thank you so much for watching. That's our meta update with the 7.39 E patch being released. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe. See you later.